Now, one of the things you hear from democratic socialists is all we want is Norway. All we want is Sweden. This is all we want. Well,
that's absolutely not true. Sweden, Norway, those are free market systems. Those are capitalist nations with a very large safety net. So it's easy for somebody to say, look, I want Sweden. We just are going to have higher taxes. We still keep the free market the way it is. In fact, we should reduce some of the regulation because Sweden and Norway are way ahead of us on less regulation. So businesses can make more money, but people make more money, and we get the taxes, and we take that money, and we have a big safety net. That's the message of Norway and Denmark, not what democratic socialists are saying.
Yeah, and we should point out, obviously, there's major issues with that. I mean, it's easy to do a
Huge.
Norway and a Denmark when you have a United States doing all the innovations for you, right? Like, it's easy to be able to live off essentially the work of other countries who have a freer market. And then, of course, there's other more, day-to-day pragmatic things. Like, for example, the average new home in the United States is 2,600 square feet. The average residence in Norway is something like 780. So, I mean,
I think the biggest thing is, and this is even too big of a state, but you could do this in, let's say, Manhattan, or you could do this in California if it was a country and they had to live within their own means, and they had to live with the consequences of what they wanted to do without dragging the rest of the country in with them. This is a very large country, huge population, very diverse. Not everybody wants to go that way. So if you wanted to do it in California, do it in California, but we cut all ties to you financially, meaning we're not going to bail you out. You have to do what Norway is doing. They have to live within their own means or go out of business.
Right. So there's a lot of trade-offs there. However, most of the people who say they're democratic socialists, when you're talking about people who are philosophically advocating that viewpoint, as we've seen from Jacobin and the piece we've talked about several times in Vox, where they talk about basically what we're looking to do is overthrow capitalism. It's not just Medicare for all. It's not just the Green New Deal. We want to overthrow it because we think it's bad. They'll eventually admit it if you kind of actually go after them. Well, in the Denver City Council, Candy Kabaka, I believe is her name, she talks about capitalism and wants to make sure that everyone understands what she really wants. And this is not just this little vision of Norway that we've been sold. This is full government ownership by the state of the means of production. Listen to her outline it.
What experience do you have on shaping the economy of the city and not turning Denver into a true welfare state where there's limited potential for personal wealth and savings?
Well, I guess we'll just address the elephant in the room. I don't believe that our current economic system actually works. Capitalism by design is extractive, and in order to generate profit in a capitalist system, something has to be exploited. That's land, labor, or resources. And I think that we're in late phase capitalism, and we know it doesn't work, and we've got to move into something new. And I believe in community ownership of land, labor, resources, and distribution of those resources. And so whatever that morphs into, I think is what will serve community the best. And I'm excited to usher it in by any means necessary.
I love that. By any means necessary. And by the way, what it's morphed into, in case she says, whatever it morphs into, so far it's 100 million dead. So that morphing was kind of problematic for me. Morphed into, a lot of people losing their lives in every single instance it's been attempted. So I do not want to try it. I do not think capitalism has failed. And we've talked about these numbers so many times. I mean, we've billions of people ripped out of poverty by this system since, we've been alive. This is not going back to you can go back to the 1800s and sure, it looks great. Go back to the 1990s. Billions of people extracted from poverty because of this system she wants to close. It's not a good look. And it was, and I will say the people of Denver knew that, and that's why, of course, she actually successfully won election after those statements.
That's unbelievable. That's absolutely unbelievable. The people, it used to be said that the people who had the most to lose did the least to save it. It is now those with the most to lose are doing the most to lose it. I mean, our Our nation is filled with people who are either in denial, it'll never happen, or they're actively involved in it. I mean, they're telling you what they want to do. And I guess part of it is we haven't learned about, nobody young has learned about the Soviet Union, has learned about the socialist experiments. These are all experiments. In fact, the first socialist experiment, I can't say the first, because the first was really the Pilgrims. No, it was really Jamestown, perhaps, and then the Pilgrims. They all tried socialist. It wasn't called socialism then, but they all tried this, we'll all decide and we'll all just put our money in a big heap, and it doesn't work. A really big experiment happened in Texas, believe it or not. And if you ever look at the skyline of Texas, just Google it real quick, and you'll see a big ball, a round ball, and it's lit up at night, and it's the Reunion Tower. Nobody knows what the Reunion Tower is. What is Reunion? Well, Reunion used to be a suburb of Dallas, and it was Reunion, Texas. It's now part of Dallas. And it was the big first real socialist experiment in Texas where they tried this. They tried this in the late 1800s. In fact, one of the biggest minds of the socialist movement from France came over. They were the movers and shakers, and they tried it. And it ended the way it always ends. You were kicked out as soon as you got sick. You were kicked out as soon as you got old. You were not allowed to stay there, and it all fell apart. Now, the modern socialist movement doesn't kick you out of the community. They just kill you. And so it completely failed, and every socialist experiment ends the same way. And what are we doing? We're going to try a socialist experiment in America and in the West. It will end exactly the same way.